Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through this call, bottom line information for you. When I woke up this morning, I had fully anticipated that we do a complete call. I turned my phone on, and I got a text that there is an international call that I've been invited to that starts right now. They always seem to get me on a Wednesday at noon. I guess I can't complain about that time slot because that's the time slot I like. But because the call is coming from Europe, it's later in the early evening there, intentionally so that people in the United States from the East Coast to the West Coast can participate with the live call because it begins at noon here on the East Coast and then 9 a.m. On the West Coast. So I'm going to have to move into that call, but before I do want to talk about some of the things going on because we do have more good news, and I want to share some of that with you. One last thing, my understanding, I got a little bit of information. The call I'm going to be listening to dovetails very nicely with the revaluation of these currencies, the subject matter, and we'll touch on Basel III compliance, the QFS, and concerns about the potential market crash, and I think they're going to delve into the situation with Evergrande. For those of you that don't know, Evergrande is probably the second largest real estate development group in China, worth hundreds of billions of dollars. They've defaulted on payments, and there's always going to be a ripple effect when an organization of that size goes into default. So that's probably going to affect the markets. And we've discussed on numerous occasions that once we have conducted our exchange, for a number of reasons, we want to get out of the currency and financial markets because they are going to be very volatile, and we want to move to tangibles. But that's a subject we'll address more directly after the reinstitution of the dinar in country. But let's talk about what's going on in Iraq, and very briefly I'm going to simply say that pretty much checked all of the boxes. It's just a matter of when, not if, they pull the trigger. Some other developments have occurred. Three major ones are that the U.S. troops are officially moving out of Iraq, which is a prerequisite for the reinstitution according to the government of Iraq. Iraq is now out of Chapter 7 with the UN pursuant to the fully paid reparations to Kuwait. They'll be moving from Chapter 7 to Article 8, which is a requirement for them to come out of the program rate. And they say that the formation of the new government will take place on January 9th, which is just a few days from now. Now, the Sadrists were able, through their coalition, to get control of the parliament, which means they will be making the choice for the prime minister. Now, all indications are that they're going to return Kazemi to the prime ministership. However, even if it's not Kazemi, this is still a win, because what we know for a fact is that it's not going to be Maliki. And that's the concern that we all had, because he's trouble for a number of reasons with his ties to Iran, that he is a radical Shia, and that's not going to work. That's already been attempted, and we've seen that that's not going to work. So the fact that it's not going to be him is very good news. Now, there is some confusion about the passage of the budget. Some say it could be postponed even till June. I don't think that's going to happen. But there are essentially three scenarios. And you have to remember that despite a lot of things that are being said, the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar is not directly tethered to the budget. the 2022 budget. And again, there are three scenarios. Scenario number one, the optimal scenario, is that the passage of the budget and change in the exchange rate will occur simultaneously. Option two is that the budget, if it's deferred, will not necessarily, and in my opinion, will not affect the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar, and the rate will be changed. I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think a delay in the budget is going to change the change in the exchange rate for the Iraqi dinar. Now, the worst case scenario is a scenario where they pass the budget with the currency still in the program rate, and then subsequently have to change the rate. That's a very complicated procedure. It can be done, and because of the way Iraq has functioned over the last decade, you have to consider that they're going to take the hardest road to get this done, but I don't think that's going to be the case. In my opinion, what's going to happen is option two, which is the reinstatement and revaluation of the dinar is going to occur. That will help move along the passage of the budget. But again, the two are not directly tethered, so that's the situation. Now, the last thing I wanted to touch on before I run to this call, as many of us who've been following this on a daily basis, the banks have been closed in Iraq for 2 weeks. Now, that's a very rare occurrence. There are only a couple of things that could result in a bank closure for this length of time. One would be a run on the bank, which creates insolvency. We know for a fact that's not what's happening. So option two is that there is a major realignment taking place. The normal end-of-day reconciliation of accounts is done at every bank every day. So we know that's not what's happening. So the only thing it could be is the realignment. Now, why do we say that? Well, we know first that the CBI is involved in the reciprocal exchange of bank branches with a number of other central banks and nations. Second, we know that the bank is working toward a transition to digital operations. And third, we know that employees of the bank are learning the new bank customer education and protocols in anticipation of a change in the exchange rate. So that's the only possibility, because we know, once again, there is no run on a bank and there's no issue with the solvency of the banks internally in Iraq. So this is all very good news, and our position was that things are looking very strong in January, and the information at hand since the beginning of the year only strengthens that position. That's where we seem to be. This is all very good news. For those of you calling in for the first time, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It has a lot of information about us, about the revaluation, about trusts, and why you need to establish your trust prior to the revaluation globally of these currencies. Now, individuals can go to YouTube to pull up our weekly calls, although we're still having some issues with YouTube. I believe they've been resolved, but that's not in my bailiwick, so I'm not dealing with that. But for those of you that want to listen to the replay, you can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Then you would just click the box that says Learn More. Then you would click the box that says Conference Calls, and then you can select whatever date or dates you'd like to listen to. If you want to listen to today's dates, you'll get an update on where we are in Iraq. If you want information about our total package, I strongly suggest you listen to our call of December 1st of last year. And included in that call is all the contact information if you'd like to get our initial no-obligation package. That package includes everything you need if you wish to proceed and establish a trust, but you're under no obligation to do so, but there's a lot of valuable information there. I'm sorry to make this call short today, but I want to get to this other call. Their meet and greet goes on for 10 or 15 minutes, so I probably haven't missed any of the information I want to take notations on, but hopefully we'll have more good information from that call that I can share with you all next week. We will be back next week at our regular time. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Have a great week. Bye-bye.